The building on the corner of Maple and 3rd stood, like a tired old giant in the middle of Chicago's restless heartbeat. Brick by brick it carried the weight of 100 stories, whispers echoing through peeling wallpaper and cracked windows. I had inherited it only 2 weeks ago after my uncle's sudden passing. A man who'd owned the place for decades but rarely spoke of it. On my first inspection, everything seemed ordinary. Leaky pipes, flickering hallway lights, tenants who avoided eye contact. But one name on the rent ledger made me stop cold. Martha Lane. Apartment 3B. The note beside her name read, in my uncle's handwriting, "Do not disturb." When I asked the maintenance man, Joe, about her, he shrugged uneasily. "She's different," he muttered, scratching his neck. "Been here since forever. Doesn't pay rent, doesn't cause trouble. Your uncle said to leave her be." That didn't sit right with me. 30 years without rent? I needed answers. So that evening, just as the sun dipped behind the skyline, painting the city in orange and violet, I climbed the creaking stairs to the 3rd floor. The hallway smelled faintly of dust and lilac, old lady perfume, the kind that lingers long after its wearer passes. I knocked. The door opened a sliver, held back by a chain lock. A pale blue eye studied me from the darkness inside. "You're the new landlord," she said quietly. Her voice was fragile but sharp, like thin glass. "You look like him." My heart skipped. "You mean my uncle?" She nodded faintly. "Yes, he said someone like you would come someday." Before I could respond, she added in a trembling whisper, "Please, don't take my home." Then the door closed softly, the chain clicking back into place. I stood there for a long moment, staring at the chipped number 3B on the door, feeling something cold crawl up my spine. That night I combed through the apartment records. There were utility bills, tax filings, maintenance logs, but nothing for 3B. No rent, no lease renewal, no signature. It was as if Martha Lane didn't exist on paper. Yet every tenant list my uncle ever filed included her name in neat cursive. And one line written across the bottom of an old page caught my eye. Promise kept. The next morning the sun tried to warm the city, but the chill inside the building refused to fade. I couldn't stop thinking about Martha Lane, her trembling voice, her eyes full of stories she didn't tell. Something about apartment 3B gnawed at me. I decided to dig deeper. I started by asking around. Most tenants barely knew her. "I've lived here 15 years, said Mrs. Ruiz from 2A, balancing her grocery bag on her hip. "And I've never seen her step outside. Not once. Groceries just appear at her door." Another told me they sometimes heard faint music from her room, late at night. 1950s jazz, soft and haunting, like something from another time. The building itself felt different that day, colder, quieter, as if listening. I explored every corner, flashlight in hand, tracing the hallways my uncle once walked. In the basement, I found a narrow metal door behind a wall of paint cans and dusty shelves. The knob refused to turn. When I looked closer, I saw a small key taped under the fuse box, labeled in my uncle's handwriting, 3B. I hesitated, then unlocked the door. The smell of old wood and smoke hit me first. Inside was a cramped storage room untouched for decades. Dust floated in the flashlight beam like ash in slow motion. On a small table sat a stack of old black and white photographs. Brittle around the edges, one showed my uncle as a young man, smiling, arm around a woman who looked unmistakably like Martha, only younger. I flipped the photo. On the back, written in neat ink, "Chicago, 1961, our wedding day." My throat tightened. My uncle was never married. At least that's what everyone believed. I kept digging. There were newspaper clippings, letters burned at the edges, and a faded newspaper headline, "Fire at Maple Apartments kills owner's wife, body never found." The date matched exactly 30 years ago. My hands began to shake. The realization hit like a punch. My uncle's mysterious tenant wasn't just anyone. She was the woman he lost. The woman the city thought had died in that fire. I stared around the room, feeling the walls breathe with history. And in the silence of that dusty basement, I swore I heard faint music drifting from upstairs, the same soft jazz, playing again in apartment 3B. By evening, the storm clouds rolled over Chicago like bruises in the sky. I couldn't stay away any longer. The photograph, the letters, the fire, it all led back to her. Whatever secret my uncle had kept buried in this building, Martha Lane was the key. I climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor, heart pounding with a mix of fear and pity. The hallway was dim, lit by the flicker of a single bulb that buzzed like a dying fly. I stood outside apartment 3B listening. Faint jazz music drifted from inside, soft, melancholic, the same tune I'd heard echoing through the vents. Taking a deep breath, I knocked. The door opened slowly. This time she didn't hide behind the chain. "You found it," she said before I could speak. Her voice was calm, almost resigned. She stepped aside, allowing me in. The air inside was thick with nostalgia. The apartment looked frozen in another decade. Floral wallpaper faded to pale gold, lace curtains yellowed by time, and furniture that might have been new in the 1960s. On a wooden side table sat a record player, spinning a worn vinyl of Ella Fitzgerald. The song crackled like fire, filling the silence between us. I glanced around. Every wall was covered in framed photos, my uncle and her, smiling through the years. Picnics, holidays, anniversaries that never made it into family stories. "You were his wife," I said softly. She nodded, tears glinting in her cloudy eyes. "Once upon a time." Her fingers brushed across one of the photographs. He couldn't forgive himself for what happened. The fire started because of his mistake, a faulty wire he promised to fix. I was trapped inside. When they couldn't find my body, he couldn't move on. I swallowed hard, the air heavy with the scent of old flowers and smoke. "He thought you were gone. He let the world think that," she whispered. "But when I came back, scarred, broken, he built this place for me. Said I'd never have to pay a dime as long as I lived here. It was his penance." The record skipped, crackling, then replayed the same line again and again. "We'll be together someday." She smiled faintly. "And he kept his word even after death. Some promises never end, landlord." Outside thunder rolled. Inside, time seemed to stand still. A week passed since my visit to apartment 3B, but I couldn't shake what I'd learned. Every night I found myself staring at the ceiling, hearing faint echoes of jazz through the vents, soft, distant like a memory refusing to fade. I hadn't seen Martha since that stormy evening. Her door stayed closed, her mailbox untouched. I told myself I'd check on her soon, but something inside me hesitated, afraid of what I might find. Then one morning, Joe, the maintenance man, called me downstairs. "You better come up to 3, he said quietly. "Something's off." When we reached the 3rd floor, the door to 3B was wide open. Inside, the air was still cold. The record player sat silent, its needle resting on a spinning black disc. Dust floated in the sunlight streaming through the open window. The furniture was gone. The photographs were gone. Even the faint scent of lilac that had always lingered was missing, like the room itself had exhaled and emptied. "Martha?" I called softly, no answer. Only the hum of the city below. We checked everywhere. No suitcases, no clothes, no trace of anyone living there at all. It was as if she had vanished into thin air. Joe looked uneasy. "You think she moved out?" he asked. I shook my head. She couldn't have. She never left this building. Something caught my eye near the window, a small glint of gold on the dusty floorboards. I bent down and picked it up. It was a locket, its metal warm despite the chill. Inside was the same photograph from the basement. My uncle and Martha on their wedding day, smiling beneath a Chicago sky. The image was clean, untouched by age or fire. I stood there holding it, feeling a strange calm wash over me. Later that night, I sat in my uncle's old office, flipping through the Tenant records again. To my disbelief, a new entry had appeared in the digital ledger. Apartment 3B, paid in full. No date, no transaction ID, just that simple line like a quiet promise fulfilled. When I locked up and headed for the elevator, a faint melody drifted down the hallway. Ella Fitzgerald's voice, soft and wistful. I turned back toward 3B, but the hallway was empty. Still, I could have sworn I heard a woman's voice whisper, "Thank you for keeping your word," and then only silence.